Hello everyone. So today we're looking at making a chicken pot pie together with a hash brown top instead of a pie crust in a casserole dish. So it's a really cozy casserole dinner to make for these autumn and winter nights that we're coming into. You could also do a tater topping as well. And I'm making it completely gluten-free and dairy-free as well for my dietary needs. So the first thing I'm doing is popping the hash browns on a plate, just so that they defrost a little bit before I get them into the oven. You don't really need to do this, but it just helps them cook a bit quicker. And then I'm going to dice up an onion, a brown onion. So I'm just topping bottoming it, getting the peel off, and going to chop it up. I'm cooking it in kind of quite a deep dish casserole dish, but you could also use more of a thin dished casserole dish. Both would work fine. And this serves probably about 4 to 6 people. I'd say more on the 4 side if you're looking for quite a decent portion. And everyone loved it so much. Last time that I definitely would make a double dish, a double portioned one next time, because I think it would be really good for leftovers the next day. I didn't have enough leftovers, so I don't know, but I think it would be really good. Anyway, so once I've got the onion diced up, I'm going to get it into my dish with some oil and get them cooking for a minute and softened. So I'm just going to get that over to the hob. And I also want to add in my chicken as well, actually, because I want to brown that. So I'm using chicken drumstick fillets, which they have in Tesco at the moment. And I'm just going to put them in whole, and I'll break them up with my spatula later on once they've started to cook. But you could definitely just use chicken thigh as well, boneless and skinless. Obviously the drumsticks are boneless and skinless as well. So you could use either. The rest of the ingredients we have here is 1 carrot, a couple of leeks, some bacon, and some garlic. And I did want to add peas, but I ran out of peas on this day, unfortunately. But peas definitely would be good too. I can imagine spinach would be good. Whatever you want to add into a normal chicken pot pie, you can add into this, really. Celery, anything like that. The next thing I'm doing is dicing up this bacon. And this is unsmoked bacon. I'm not exactly sure what type of bacon I had. I can't remember, but I'm just getting these into small chunks. You can get these into kind of whatever size chunks you'd like. I think I kind of go like with inch sized, but really whatever size you want bacon for inside your chicken pot pie. So it's up to you. This whole dish is completely customizable, really. So whilst I'm doing this, my chicken and onions are kind of cooking at the same time. My chicken's browning, and then I'll get the bacon into that. So once I get back, I start on my other veggies. So I'm going to peel my carrot and chop that into little chunks. Obviously, if you don't like carrot, you wouldn't want to do carrot, but I love carrot in a chicken pie. I just think it's so good. So I'm peeling that off, and then I'm just going to cut it into little chunks. So you could grate it if you prefer like really small pieces of carrot, or you could do rounds. If you had frozen carrot, you could just add it frozen. But I quite like little chunks, so that's what I'm going with. So I'm just going to top and tail it. And then yeah, you'll see what I mean by chunks. So I'm just doing rounds first of all, and then I'm going to cut out those rounds into quarters. And then obviously the rest of the stuff's cooking whilst I'm doing this at the same time. And you also at some point will want to get your oven preheating to, I think I did 200 degrees Celsius. And that's in a fan oven too, so maybe 220 if you've not got a fan oven. I kind of say if you're using a fan oven, 180 to 200, and if you're not using a fan, 200 to 220. And the good thing about this is that all these scraps can obviously go in the compost too, so not too much waste. When I get into this bigger section of the carrot, I'm chopping it up a little bit more just because if it's in quarters, it's not very, it's quite big. But again, just do whatever you want, really. It obviously shrinks a bit as it cooks. And I love the way that carrot takes on, like, the flavours. And after the carrot, we obviously have leeks and garlic is what I have. But yeah, some other options definitely are peas, maybe some spinach or greens, celery, corn could be good. Yeah, lots of options. Even little chunks of potato could be good to go along with the hash brown top. Here's it cooking. I mean, just adding in the carrots. So then I've cleaned off my leeks. I'm just going to take the ends off and just cut these into little browns. I'm not going to use much of the green. I'm just mostly using the stem. So mostly the whites of the leeks. And yeah, I'm just cutting these into quite small, like 1 centimeter thick rounds. Until I get to like the greenest part, and then I'm leaving that, like you can see. So I'm leaving them, leave out. You could use those for a different dish or just compost them as well. It's really up to you. I don't really, if you have any ideas for what you can do with leek greens, give me some. Because whenever I make leek and potato soup, I only ever use the whites too, so I often end up wasting that part of the leek. I'm guessing you could use it for like vegetable stock. I'm not sure. But yeah, if you have any ideas or a recipe you like to use them for, please let me know. Anyway, I've added the leek into that now. And lastly, we just have the garlic to cut up. So really you can do any amount of garlic that you like. If you want it more garlicky, you can do more garlic, and if you're not feeling that much garlic, then you don't have to use any. I think I'm using 4 or 5 cloves of garlic on this day. And I think I'm using like the bigger cloves. So anyway, I'm just going to peel them and then cut them up, dice them up nice and fine. The more you dice up garlic, the more garlicky it tastes. And I quite like garlic, so I'm going for quite garlicky. But also, I feel like chicken pie is just one of those things that makes you feel better when you're not feeling too well, if you have a cold or anything. It's just such a cozy meal. And part of why I think it makes you feel like that is obviously all the garlic and everything. It's all nice and healthy. On this day, I didn't feel unwell, but I've had it when I've felt unwell before, and it's just the best. So cozy and like hearty, especially with the hash brown top. But I love a normal chicken pot pie too. and a chicken soup. So that you can just see I'm dicing up the garlic slowly. You could just use your garlic crusher as well. If you have a garlic crusher, that would definitely work. I don't like using the garlic crusher just because it's so much hassle to clean. I find that it gets really stuck in there. So I tend to just finely chop it. I am being quite careful with my hands here not to prick myself with the end of the knife. Anyway, so once you have that all chopped up nicely, you can add that into the casserole dish as well. And just kind of continue cooking everything in the oven. You'll want to kind of break up the chicken pieces a little bit, so you can see that I've kind of started breaking them up here. And now I'm adding my herbs in. So I'm going to add some typical salt and pepper, obviously. Also some Italian seasoning. I love to add Italian seasoning. If you have some fresh herbs would be so good. I like to add a little bit of turmeric and some black pepper just for a little bit of added health benefits. And you could add all sorts of different flavours. It's a very malleable dish. But anyway, here you can just see it's bubbling away and cooking. But you do want to be a bit careful with putting a plastic spoon on the side of a casserole dish, like an enamel cast iron one, because it can get very hot. So probably best not to do that. But I did that. So do as I say, not as I do, as they always say. But anyway, I'm just stirring that all through. When you're browning the chicken at the start, it will get a bit brown on the bottom, but once the liquids, like the steam and everything, comes off the veggies, it comes off the bottom, so don't worry about that. But yeah, here you can see I'm kind of chopping up the chicken a little bit more with my spoon. It breaks quite easily, the chicken drumstick fillets. And this time I do actually take my spoon out and not leave it in the hot pan. And here I'm just adding in my spices. So like I say, some salt and pepper. I do have a garlic pepper as well, that's good to use. Some Italian seasoning. This is my salt. I'm using sea salt flakes. That I'm presuming is my Italian seasoning. I add that to like everything. Yeah, some pepper, and I do like to add, like I said, turmeric. But to activate the turmeric, at least I've heard, I don't know, but I've heard that if you want to activate the turmeric, you want to add black pepper to it. Then I add a chicken stock cube. It's a gluten-free one and dairy-free. It's by, I can't think of the name, Knorr, Knor, I believe. They're the ones that I usually get. Be careful. Check the ingredients on stock cubes. I have made that mistake before and been quite ill from making that mistake. So always check the ingredients on a stock cube if you have allergies. It's an area where things can go very wrong. Then I'm going to add just about like a glass of water, like half a glass of water, just to melt the stock cube. There's already a lot of water in there from the steam off the vegetables, like I said before. But I'm just adding that in to help dissolve that stock cube. If you have fresh chicken stock as well, you could definitely use that instead. And do excuse my pajama trousers there. I'm just cooking dinner on this night, and so I got changed into my pajama trousers. Then I'm adding about 100 ml of dairy-free cream. I'm using the Flora Plant double cream whipping cream one, that's the one that I usually use. So that's what I had on hand, so that's what I'm using on this day. I'm going to mix that through. And then I will thicken it up in the minute. So to thicken it up, you could use a starch, you could use like cornstarch and make like a slurry with that. But I'm just using some gluten-free plain flour by Dove's Farm on this day. But I'm just going to let that cream mix in for a minute first. And for the flour, I use about 2 tablespoons in whole, but just do it like a tablespoon at a time, see how much you need. And at this point, all my meat and everything is cooked through. And obviously it will continue cooking in the oven, but right now you could eat what's in the pan anyway. It's all cooked through anyway. And you would definitely want your oven preheated at this point, because once we've finished thickening it up and adding the hash browns, and it's ready to go in. And if you can eat cheese, adding a bit of cheese on top of this I think would be so good as well. But it definitely doesn't need the cheese. So yeah, here I'm adding about a tablespoon of flour, mixing that through, and then I do add a little bit more. Really, I just put in enough until I can see that it's really starting to thicken up, and then I know that we're good to go in the oven. A lot of my cooking is just done off eye and flavour, so a lot of the time I don't have precise measurements, but this is a rough estimate of how much flour I think you need. And if you're not using gluten-free flour, I imagine it's the same amount. But you can see it's not like my dish is overly full here. So I definitely think I will double the recipe next time I make it, so that I have like quite a bit left over, because it is so delicious. And really not that difficult to make at all. I find it a lot easier than making normal chicken pot pie, because obviously you don't have the process of making the pastry, and I usually make the pastry from scratch. I guess if I was smart and I had pastry pre-done in my freezer and then defrosted that, then it wouldn't take too much more effort. But also, you only use one pan here. You're like just dirtying one dish, which makes it a lot easier, in my opinion. Although casserole dishes can be hard to clean, and this is quite hard to clean afterwards from everything kind of like boiling up the sides. So yeah, I'm adding just a little bit more flour to thicken it up. Tiny bit more. And then once I'm done with that, we can place our hash browns on the top. And you can obviously see that my hash browns are waiting patiently beside the pot. I think these are just Tesco own hash browns. I don't really like, what brand is it? Whatever the usual brand of hash browns is, I don't really like. I feel like they use too much seasoning, like pepper. I find that they're really peppery. I'm not a huge pepper fan, so that might just be me. But really, on this type of thing, you're barely going to taste the pepper or anything because of all the chicken and everything. So I don't really think that matters too much. But yeah, you can. I think you could use any as long as they're suitable for you. Then yeah, you could really use whatever. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hash browns here, I think. But yeah, you could definitely use tater tots too. To create the topping, really anything of a similar nature would work. So now I'm going to get that into the oven for 25 minutes until everything is golden, and here it is finished. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you give it a try, let me know. Bye!